here's Chris Maher, host of FFM93 Live.
All right. What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 6 of FFM93 Live. Lots to talk about from the last handful of days here with the Philadelphia Flyers and everything that is essentially going on. Free agency is done. The draft is done. Development camp, we're on the last day today. Today is just the 3-on-3 tournament. The morning portion was canceled. If you've been following along with me on Twitter, I've essentially been at development camp every day, and there's been a good amount to talk about. As for the most recent day, I had a couple interviews. I have a couple more today. I know I tweeted out the other day that I was going to have 4 today, but it actually got pushed back. I got 1 done yesterday, and I have 3 more tonight after the rookie game, the 3-on-3 tournament, not the rookie game. So I'll have those for the next episode. And then as for today, you'll hear from Elliot Desnoyers, who's I personally believe has had a really good camp so far. So I was able to do a one-on-one with him. He also did have a media availability as well yesterday too. But again, obviously in the last handful of days, there's been a lot to talk about with the Flyers and essentially what they did, but also what they didn't do. I've really thought about it, and I kind of look at this as it's unfortunate because it feels like that we essentially were all duped because everybody was kind of believing that Johnny Gaudreau was gonna be a Flyer, and he signs in Columbus. And again, I'm gonna break down all of free agency as well and figure out, but look at teams that did well. And the Flyers buy out Lindblom, and no later than noon the next day, he signs with San Jose, 2 years, $2.5 million. I feel like if Lindblom was that easily signed and that easily picked up, I think the market was probably pretty good on getting him in here, or at least trying to getting somebody else in here for him if you were to trade. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do that, and they have to buy him out. So after the Delorier and the Braun signings, as of right now, the Flyers have a projected cap hit of $81,798,107. Projected cap space is $701,893. As for the forwards, again, you still have all the RFAs that have to officially be signed. Most of them did get the qualifying offers. The players that did were Jackson Cates, Morgan Frost, Linus Hochberg, Zach McEwen, Owen Tippett, Wade Allison, Tanner Legzinski, Hayden Hodgson, and Isaac Ratcliffe. And then the 3 players that did not get a qualifying offer were Matthew Strome, Maxim Sushko, and Kirill Ustimenko. So as for those 3, Strome could never really figure it out. It seems like everybody was like the skating and this and that, and he was in Reading and Lehigh Valley. Sushko was somewhere. I think Sushko was actually played in the KHL for a little bit. In the last handful of years, there's been different things that have essentially gone on, but he played a little bit. If elite prospects would let me look at this, played 19-20 with the Phantoms, played 53 games, and then also played last year 63 games with the Phantoms as well. So he also, he went over to the KHL for a little bit on a loan and then came back over and played a little bit. Obviously did play a couple games with the Flyers. I think one of the games he played that year was the Lake Tahoe game because the Flyers had absolutely nobody. But yeah, I mean, so those are the guys who get the qualifying offers. And as for Ustimenko, I don't think it was going to work out with Usti. It just didn't seem like, most of the what was happening with him, what was going on. What's up, everybody in the chat? Joel Farabee traded JVR on a first for Patty Kane. Young Das, excruciating times being a Flyers fan. It's been rough, just to say the least. It's been rough. how do you feel JVR staying with us next season? I was thinking about that. That guy is going to get absolutely destroyed, whether it's Twitter, social media, like everything. I mean, nobody is really going to be on the JVR train anymore, unfortunately, because he was the guy who was supposed to go out to get Johnny Gaudreau in here. Carter H, do you think Philly is done? I think they still explore trade market when they have more clarity on the Ellis situation. Fletcher said they're done, but GMs always lie. I don't know, man. I mean, I look at it in a couple of different things, and that's why I brought up the cap friendly, because you have certain contracts and you have some of these guys you still have to sign. I don't know if they're done. Like, I've been really thinking about it, and I think the whole Delorier thing. I think, and I did say this on the day he was signed. I didn't say it in the video, but I was thinking about it at the same time. It's very similar to Ryan Reeves getting picked up with the Rangers. It's a similar thing. Like, they needed that sort of player to kind of protect their guys, and they did that. Jeffrey Provy will be destroyed too. Yes, I agree with that. They needed that sort of toughness, and it can't just come from one player. It's got to be a team thing. So I'm curious to see how that works out. It's never always a one player type thing. It's always a team type thing. And realistically, the Flyers right now are essentially selling their season on John Tortorella. That's the selling point, at least in my mind. It's very hard it's very hard to really sit here and think of what this team can actually do to sell tickets and what they actually can do, because again, it's so hard to look at them and actually think that they will not even just like compete, but if you just look at the Metropolitan Division alone, I don't think the Flyers got worse, but they definitely didn't get better. I mean, it's kind of hard. Like, we don't really know until opening night, but just in general, I mean, I was thinking about it, and I put up a tweet the other night, essentially, of just the roster alone, and the opening night roster and what it can be. I'm attempting to pull it up here because. So I tweeted this out the other night, and the opening night roster that I have for right now is, again, and I didn't really just I didn't really think of any sort of thing. Now, there are reasons I put certain guys in different spots, but just this is my opening night roster for right now. Tippett, Couturier, Atkinson is line 1. Frost, Hayes, Connecting is line 2. Van Riemsdyk, Lawton, and Noah Cates is line 3. Delorier, Brown, and McEwen is line 4. Defense, Provorov, D'Angelo, Sanheimer, Stalainen, York, and Braun. Extras, Farabee, obviously he's hurt. Legzinski, Allison, Ratcliffe, Sealer, Kanon. Those are essentially all of the guys. And obviously goaltenders, Hart and Sandstrom. So those are the guys for me right now. That's your opening night roster. You could have had a Gaudreau in this and Amadeo. I 100% agree. What about our fans back? They'll show up for the first time, first few for Torts, and then the arena will be empty. I'm curious to just see how it'll be with Torts. I think they're really banking on essentially. I mean, it seems like the way that Fletcher is molding this is he's putting it seems like he's putting his whole plan into Torts' hands and saying, okay, take over now. And, kind of like just letting him take the wheel. And I think Gaudreau would have helped that. I mean, I think there's different things that Gaudreau would have helped in just about every area. Would have helped in your power play, would have helped in ticket sales. He would have helped in, national coverage, all of that stuff. Philly season wings are a little mixed up. Tippett's a right wing. Well, I mean, to me, I'd rather have Tippett on the left because he's a right shot, and Cates can play center or either wing. And the only reason I did it is because Farabee's hurt. So again, if Farabee wasn't hurt, I'd have Farabee, Couturier, Atkinson. Then I'd have Frost, Hayes, and Konechny. Or you could put, again, maybe you don't want two shooters on the line, Tippett and Atkinson. You could put Konechny, Tippett, Couturier, Konechny. Again, there's so many different things that you can do. So I kind of just, again, I kind of just threw it together. I wasn't really, you know, doing anything really specific. As for the D, you're not really switching much, and the goalies are pretty much the same. You can mix match the lines all you want, but I personally like Tippett on the left because you have the right hand shot. I do think Frost should play wing. I do think Morgan Frost should be the second line left winger going into next season. And Van Riemsdyk, again, third line, that's fine. I think Lawton at the 3C is fine. You could even put Lawton at the 4C if you wanted, if Brown starts in Lehigh Valley, and then you have Cates slide into center. If you want to do that, you can. I think it all depends on how Torts views them. Again, I think it just depends on the system and how the Flyers actually play as a team. You have a whole different coaching staff. They bring in Bradshaw. Obviously, they hire Rocky Thompson for the power play. So there's different things. And, I kind of feel like overall that there's going to be, I feel like there's going to be different things. And again, you're going to need players to step up. I mean, and again, if I'm just looking at the lines, like your Frosts, your Cateses, your McEwens, your Tippett's, and I'm not saying that guys step up, but I'm just saying you're going to need good years out of these guys. And I mean, and even the guys that are coming on, and that's the thing. It's so hard for me to look at this team and genuinely think that they will be not necessarily content, but I think they'll be the worst in the Metro. I mean, and if they don't do anything and they're the exact same team of that roster that I just mentioned, I think they'll be 8th in the Metro. And I already think that they are. New Jersey got better. They got Palat. Columbus obviously gets Gaudreau at 9.8 too. So clearly the money didn't matter. I mean, again, Pitt essentially kept their whole team. The Caps get Strome, they get Kemper. The Islanders, I don't think did much, but I do think they'll rebound. Rangers are obviously very good. Carolina as well. It's very hard for me to look at this team and genuinely think that they'll be better next year. And again, I think they'll be. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think they'll be better. I just don't know what extent of better it'll be, because again, you add Deloria, you add Braun. As for the D, if I'm looking at the D again, you have Provorov, D'Angelo, Sanheimer, Stalainen, and York and Braun. You have Connaughton, you have Zamula, you have Sealer, you have all these guys that essentially could play up here in the NHL. Again, Connaughton is a two-way deal, so he probably will be down in Lehigh Valley. And they did make a couple other signings as well. They bring back Cooper Marity, Tony Grosenick, who actually had some really good numbers in the AHL and the NHL for a little bit. It's just in general, they have done a good amount of signings, and they've done different things in the recent days, because again, you still have to add depth players and things like that. But as for the players that they added, let me pull up the transaction here. Philadelphia Flyers announced today the following free agent signings, according to the president of hockey operations, general manager Chuck Fletcher. The Flyers announced today Tony Grosenick on a 1-year, one-way contract, average annual value, AAV $750K. I think Grosenick will probably compete for the spot. That's what it seems like in camp. They signed Connaughton, 2-year, two-way deal, average annual value $762,500. Cooper Marity, two-way deal, two-way contract, AAV of $762,500. And Adam Brooks, who's a forward, two-way contract, AAV $762,500. So again, they signed a couple more guys. Is Sandstrom going to be back up? That's what it seems like. It seems like Sandstrom will be the backup going into next season. I really don't know. It's hard for me to put all of my faith into Sandstrom as the backup, because the guy only played 5 games and it's such a small sample size. Again, I'm not saying Sandstrom isn't a good goaltender, and maybe he surprises me, but it's very hard to really sit there and think that he'll be not ready, because I think he'll be ready. It's very hard for me to really like have all my faith in him. And Jones obviously goes to Seattle, and essentially everything that happened with Fedotov, it's just a terrible situation of what's been happening. Um, Carter H. Camp will be interesting to say the least. Yes, it will. It'll be a lot of different things. And again, I think the biggest issue that I have with this is that they're banking on a lot to go well. I mean, you're banking on, okay, you have Farabee coming off of an injury, you have Couturier, you have Hayes, you have Atkinson, all these guys essentially who were hurt last year. Ristolainen was hurt towards the end of the year. Braun played through the playoffs, and I would assume at least played with at least one injury, Braun, throughout the playoffs. Brown was also dealing with some things, throughout the end of the year as well. Lawton was coming off the concussion that he had, and things like that. Obviously, again, not all these were recent, towards the end of the season, but most of the guys that were out towards the end of the year, you're going to be seeing. And again, it's a very similar lineup. I'm not like concerned about, and I thought about it. I think I had a slight overreaction on the scoring. I don't know. Like, it's hard for me to look at the team and think that they're going to score. Again, I can't see them scoring at the rate that they scored last year. I mean, they were like 32nd power play, bottom 5 in scoring just in the entire year of goals a game. I think they'll score more, but again, when does it get really bad? When guys get hurt, and things like that. Like it's hard, it's just so hard for me to really look at the team and think that they'll score at a rate that they need to score at. It's very hard, and I don't see them really competing much. I mean, look, I do think Torts can help a lot, and I think their structure will be better, and I think they'll all play for each other, because the Flyers never had a bad room. We got, again, just quick thing, we got like 30 people in here right now. Again, really appreciate that. If anybody, again, if you want to put something in the chat, we have a lot of stuff here in the chat, and also if you want to call in and leave a message, you can. The phone will buzz, yeah, I mean, I think it'll be good with Torts. I mean, that's the hope, right? I mean, if you're looking at it in the more positive light, and to what essentially we have to look at Torts, and we have to look at what the guy can bring and what the staff can bring to this team next season. I think there's going to be a lot of different things, and exactly, they're banking on the team staying healthy when a ton of players had long-term injuries. Exactly, 100%. And two of these guys are and I didn't even mention the defense pretty much when I talked about the injuries. You obviously have Ellis, and if Ellis plays, they'll be a better team. But will he play healthy is the question, and will he even come back? I think he might play at some point. I don't know how long. I don't know when. Farabee, I think Farabee will probably be on schedule, maybe a little earlier. This one from Strub Kyle. Do you think creating a culture and identity is needed more than a superstar who probably would have had a lackluster of supporting talent, and we just watched Donnie light it up and not make a run? No, because I do think that having a superstar like Johnny, it can kind of not necessarily. I mean, it can help with replacing a guy like Giroux that you traded, and it also can help bring a certain buzz around the team in a year where they literally were barely getting like 10,000 people in the arena. I think creating the culture and the identity it helps with the Torts hire. It helps with bringing in a guy like a Delorier. It helps with bringing in certain players that want to be a Flyer and want to play here. And obviously Gaudreau was one of them, but the Flyers couldn't make it work. And I think that's what the most aggravating and frustrating part about it with Gaudreau and him not coming here is because the Flyers essentially had, they had a long time to get the cap. And I mean, how long has the guy been saying he wanted to be a Flyer? since like, I mean, that stuff was rumored in like 2016, 2017. Obviously, that has nothing to do with Fletcher or anything, but it's been a while since the guy said he's wanted to play here. Okay. Then you have, you know, since essentially December, you fired AV and you did all these different things, and you couldn't move out the money. It's just that's the frustrating part, is the guy wanted to come here and he wanted to be a Flyer, and he wanted to be a Flyer. I mean, to me, that's one of the most important things of trying to build back a new identity, is having guys that want to be Flyers. And it's, there was that whole thing of like, oh, could they attract like free agents? Like, I didn't really see that. Like, I saw maybe a little bit of it, but I thought it was kind of extreme, if I'm being honest with you. As a fan base, watching the Fletcher press conference just felt completely lied to. Well, the most confusing thing was the blank check thing. Like, I mentioned it in the video. Like, you said that you'd give us money, and to be fair, they did spend money. I mean, they went out. They re-signed Ristolainen. They go and they sign D'Angelo, and then they buy out Lindblom and get these two guys. So they spent money, but they spent it in the ways that we weren't thinking, and it's like. And it was in more of ways of them not essentially getting enough. And again, it's not that I don't think the Flyers don't have talent. I just don't think they have enough right now to compete to where the front office and everybody else expects them to be. Like, I do think they have talent. I think there's talented players on this roster. I think a lot of guys are going to have to step up. And again, you're banking on a lot is the problem. You're banking on everything working out with Torts. Okay. B, you're banking on all of these players coming back from injury and at least being healthy for a good amount of the season, hopefully throughout the entire year, because everybody knows most guys don't really, play healthy, that whole kind of thing. C, you're banking on, D'Angelo and all the, off-ice stuff. If that works out, I don't see it as much of an issue, but I know other people do. And D, you're also banking on your power play and your penalty kill being better and just being a better team in general. And then, what's that? E, D, whatever. You're then banking on Sandstrom being your backup goaltender. So that's like 5 things you're banking on going into next year. If you're just looking. Again, if you're just looking at other teams, right? And I'm gonna pull up the free agent tracker because there's a lot. There is a lot. Let me see here. Okay, we can go essentially like team by team. Let's start just with Columbus. Goodbranson signs Gaudreau. Both guys there go to Columbus. As for this, and of course this goes in team order, so it's hard to figure out. New Jersey, they get Smith, and Palat signs a 5-year deal. The Islanders, they didn't sign anybody; they just kind of re-signed their own guys. The Rangers, Domingue, Trocheck, Halak, and Carpenter. Ottawa gets Giroux. As for Pitt, they get Malkin. He signs a 4-year deal to Karski, Ouellette, Ruda, Archibald, and Kajula. Obviously, they kept Letang as well on draft day. Let's see. Anybody else? So that seems like it's pretty much that's it. Outside of Washington, then you have Kemper, Lindgren, Eric Gustafsson goes to the Caps, Johansson, Irwin, Borgstrom, and Dylan. So essentially every other team got better. If you're just looking at, and again, my team that I think won free agency or had a really good free agency is the Detroit Red Wings. They had an incredible free agency. Just listen to some of the guys that they got here for, again, the Red Wings, who already have an abundance of young talent, guys like Larkin, Bertuzzi, Lucas Raymond, Moritz Seider. They get Andrew Kopp, who signs a 5-year deal, Ben Sherratt, 4-year deal. Kubalik signs a 2-year deal at a pretty good rate. David Perron, who's, again, probably one of the best guys on the power play, shooters, probably underrated shooter in the league. Zarnik, Pizik, and Olimata. I mean, they had a really, really good free agency day. They have a lot, and so they still have like $11.6 million to spend. They had like $30 million going into it, so you had to think that they'd make a splash. And as for Ottawa, they got better. I mean, they get the Brinket, they get Cam Talbot, they get Claude Giroux. Josh Norris signs an 8-year extension, who had a really good year last year. I can see both of those teams competing for a spot. I mean, outside of the Eastern Conference, I think we are one of the worst teams. I think us, I mean, on paper, yeah, I think us and, Buffalo is a little bit different because, they played with heart through a lot of last year. Flyers didn't do that. And they kind of lost that identity. So it's a little bit different. So, I mean, outside of the Eastern Conference, if you're just looking alone, right, and you're looking at other teams, it's very tough to sit here and say that this Flyers team is going to be, man, I think they'll be competitive. I just don't know to the extent and how much can Torts really get out of them is the question. And again, I'm willing to give Torts the chance. I'm not going to sit here and say he can't do it. I'm willing to give the guy, the benefit of the doubt. Again, in the Atlantic, I mean, obviously Montreal is down there too. They are probably worse than us. So I will say that. I mean, obviously Boston, Buffalo, like I told you, Detroit got better. Florida actually got worse. They lost Sherrod, they lost Giroux, they lost Marchment, and Declare's hurt. Montreal, Tampa Bay is Tampa Bay, and they just threw money at everybody in a span of like 5 minutes. Who did they re-sign? Sorelli, Sergachev, and I can't think of the other one. If somebody remembers, just chuck it in the chat. The Sens did incredible. Again, just and then obviously the Leafs. Carolina, they get Brent Burns. Columbus gets Gaudreau. Jersey gets Palat. Islanders didn't do anything. Rangers get Trocheck. Pitt keeps everybody, and the Caps get Strome and Kemper. So that's essentially how the Metro goes. Chernak, yes, Chernak. It was Chernak. Chernak was really good for them, and he signs the extension. And speaking of Chernak, because I wanted to bring this up from Dev Camp, Michael Connell brought this up in the I almost hit the poster. Michael Connell brought up Chernak, right? And he brought up Ronnie Attard, essentially trying to mold Attard into a Chernak type and a Trouba type. That's what that's what Attard had said. Was that yesterday? Yesterday, at Dev Camp. And I'm okay with trying to mold players into certain guys and having the idea, but I think adding a guy like Attard, who already has a good offensive ability to him and a good shot, and essentially taking that out of him for a couple years and trying to mold him into a certain player that he's not, and then trying to reinstill that offensive ability, I don't think that's going to work. I think it's very tough. Like, I hope they do it the right way. But I think Attard has a lot of upside. I think he'll be a Phantom this year. I think he'll play in Lehigh Valley. But again, as for development camp, like, I mean, a lot of the guys I think have done pretty well. Again, it's more drills. It's more about reps. Like again, Dino Ye, I think has had a pretty good camp so far. And obviously you'll hear from him just in a couple minutes here. As for Forster, I think he's looked fine. And again, they're going to need guys like that too to play well, and to at least be ready for Lehigh Valley if they need call-ups, because you can't go through another season where you have so many guys hurt again. And that's the thing. Fletcher had talked about, essentially that they're still trying to work out looking at different staff and things like that. So maybe they do something different with the medical staff coming up this year. We'll see what happens. The Flyers discussion, 2023 free agent market is really good. Maybe we'll actually try. That's the thing. Like it was harder for me to again, it's so hard because again, we got duped, but also if you look at it in a different sense, like he put everything into the team last year and went out and did like made 3 signings, 4 trades, did like a bunch of different things. Trades for Ellis, trades for Ristolainen, who else? What was the other trade? Oh, the Gostisbehere trade. He does all that stuff. He signs Brassard, he signs Yandel, signs Jones. He signs all these different players, and it completely backfired. So that's probably why he didn't do anything this year, or at least not make an effort. I think he made an effort. He said it himself that they weren't in on Gaudreau, which is just mind-boggling to me. Again, because the guy wanted to come here. It's very hard for me to forget that, because when was the last time you had a top-end free agent who is one of the best players in the National Hockey League want to come to Philadelphia when you have that bad of a season? And again, the Flyers haven't had that bad of a season, ever. You know what I mean? But it's just so hard for me to look at that, because most of the high-end guys that came here were trade. They get Pronger in a trade. All these other guys were trade. And a guy in free agency where you just didn't have the money. It was the year where they didn't have the money. But getting back to development camp, I'm gonna play this interview from Dino. Yeah, I thought he said a lot of good stuff. Let's get to it.
Right. So
here we go. Pull it up.
Here with Elliot Desnoyers. Elliot, how are you feeling? It's been it seems like it's been a good couple of days for you. Obviously has there been anything that you've been trying to pick up by coming here?
Yeah. First of all, I'm doing pretty good. Camp is awesome. To be here with, the Flyers prospect, the guys that you'll be playing with in a couple of years is super fun. And I've been trying to learn every time I'm on the ice, out of the ice. Everyone here is a professional, so it's always great to, like people like to call it, be a sponge and try to take everything from everyone.
Last year, you obviously had a pretty good camp, and then obviously go to you actually were at Flyers main camp for a little bit, and then also playing the preseason game and against Boston. Obviously, it was a pretty big moment for you. You had a pretty good game, had the fight. Was there anything that you kind of took from that game that you wanted to kind of carry into the season?
Yeah, for sure. The speed of the game was way faster than junior, and just trying to be a little physical and try to be hard on every shift was kind of the main thing that I had to do in that game, and this is what I've been trying to work on since that game. Just try to be hard in every shift and to be relentless.
As for this past season, you put up 42 goals, 88 points. Was there anything that you tried to do differently, or was it just you kind of felt really comfortable?
Yeah, I think my line mates were a big part of it. In junior, when you have the right line mates, it makes a huge difference. And there's nothing I did really different than the other year. I was just faster, I think, and stronger, and this would help me. Yeah.
As for going into this season, is there any goals that you have for yourself?
Yeah, for sure. I have many goals. I'm starting to focus on more juniors that are coming, and then for the season, obviously playing for the Flyers and make myself a spot in the roster would be awesome. I'll be working hard every day for that, and we'll see how that goes.
As for, obviously you just talked to us about guys that you kind of mold your game after, like Bergeron, Couturier. Are there any other guys more on maybe like the offensive side, or do you try to focus more on the two-way guys?
Well, obviously those two-way guys are as well really offensive. I think, when you look at offensive players, when when I what I would like to have is like a shot like Matthews. It's always good to look at those guys and see how they shoot and how they try to see the game to shoot from any angle, and this is something that won't be hurting me to shoot like that.
Is that one of your main things to try to work on this summer? Or at least maybe try to work on your shot.
Yeah, for sure. I work. I try to work on the most thing possible. If you want to become a pro player, you want to have every part of your game as the perfection. So that's what I've tried to been working on since the summer and since a couple years.
Thanks, Elliot.
Yep.
All right, so that was Elliot Dinoyer. Again, thank you to Elliot, and then thank you to Josephville for letting me get that set up, who works with the Flyers PR. Yeah, I mean, I've really liked Dinoyer in general. He's been, again, when they drafted him, 5th-round pick, essentially I kind of look at it as a steal in the draft, and, there actually have been other players that they've kind of looked at, and Flair actually talked about this too, like, Kolosov, like they look at Kolosov as the best player they've ever taken. Like, he is the guy. So we'll see how that works out with Kolosov. But as for just like talent alone and looking at this team, I think there's a lot of different things that you can, again, kind of going back to the opening night roster, because again, like, there's so many different things going into the season. Is Zamula at camp? No, Zamula right now is training for the World Juniors. Him, Zanetti, and Andre, or not Zamula. Zanetti and Andre are training for the World Juniors. Zamula is just in Russia. So that is the difference. But Zanetti and Andre are training for the World Juniors coming up in August, because again, that tournament is going to be back around in August. Essentially, they're just going to play it again. It's not going to be anything of what had happened before. They're not going to like restart or anything like that. It's going to be a whole new tournament, because most teams play like 1 or 2 games. Danny B for general manager. That could be something. We'll see. Obviously, don't really know right now. I wanted to go back to this comment, the 2023 free agent market. It's very hard to. It's hard for me to really look at the team a year from now, but I kind of look at it too as, again, it's so hard for me to look at the team a year from now, but it's also like you have to see where the cap is, and again, the cap probably I don't think it's going to go up that much, if it does at all. So we'll see. But again, I think it's tough because you don't really know how the Flyers team is going to play this year, and you also have to look at if they make any sort of other move, whether it's coaching staff or management or anything else before that time. So I think we'll have to see. Florida may lose Bobrovsky. That's wow. Arctic Flux, what's up, man? I believe you're still in here. Thanks for joining. I appreciate it. I'm gonna have to join your stream at some point. I keep saying it, but I keep forgetting. Don't have your hopes up on getting Bedard. It'll just pain us more. I've seen a lot of people see like they should tank for Bedard, or they should do this and do that. They could, but to me, it is very unlikely. And watch it be like Pitt or somebody else like that gets them. Phantom 28, 2023 draft is the best in years. It's definitely up there. Best in years, though. I'm trying to think. Like 15, like, again, if you go and you still look at the 2015 NHL draft, okay? You just look at that draft in general. Okay, you have McDavid, Eichel, Strome, Marner, Hanifin, Zacha, Provorov, Werenski, Maher, Rantanen, Krause, Gurianov. The three major bonehead moves by the Bruins: Borrell, DeBrus, Zenishin, Barzal, Connor, Shabbat. Could you imagine if they took Barzal, Kyle Connor, and Shabbat? Seshnikov, Eriksson, Colin White, Samsonov, Brock Besser, Travis Konechny, Jack Roslovic, Noah Juleson, Jacob Larson, Anthony Beauvillier, Gabriel Carson, Nick Merkley. Going into the second round, you have some really good picks: Sebastian Aho, Travis Dermott, Mitchell Stevens, Mackenzie Blackwood, Chernak, Robe Hintz, Jordan Greenway, Rasmus Anderson, Oliver Shillington. Let me see. I know that there's another one in here that's like a third or fourth round. That's like, oh my gosh, trying to figure. Oh, Sorelli, Anthony Sorelli went to Tampa, and the Flyers took Felix Sandstrom like 2 picks before that. So again, there are other drafts, and there are other years of this where it's. Again, it's hard because outside of Bedard and Michkov, I really don't know anybody. Again, going back to the 15 draft, I mean, Montembeau ends up going in that draft. Like again, there's a lot of different players and a lot of good talent that went pretty down low. But again, just the first round alone was incredible. So many good NHL players from, again, McDavid, Eichel, Strome, Marner, Provorov, Werenski, Maher, Rantanen, Gurianov, DeBrusque, Barzal, like again, and just those 3 picks: Barzal, Connor, Shabbat. It's just incredible how much talent went in this draft. I don't think that we should look at next year's draft. Let's get through this year first. I mean, it's definitely understandable to look at the draft, but it's also, again, Jeff, I see your point. From the clips I saw, Capital McLaughlin, I really liked McLaughlin. I think he's looked pretty good. Gauthier, again, I think has looked well. Kaplan, again, I think tonight, if you can, try to attend the 3-on-3, because that's when you kind of see the most of these guys in game action. Do you think Sanheim gets extended? Yes, I do. One other thing I did want to mention about the free agency as well, the Oilers. I thought they had a pretty good, and I could see Edmonton going farther because they have Campbell now, and they kept Kane, and they also signed Pickard, Calvin Pickard. Everybody remember Calvin Pickard with the Flyers? Will it be live? I don't know. It might be. I'm not sure. I'll ask the PR, and I'll probably tweet it out if they do go live. If not, I could stream it. I can ask. I'm not sure if I'll be allowed, but I can definitely ask. Again, same thing. I'll ask if they're streaming it. They probably will. If they're not, I'll see if it. But usually they do. Aho did. Kaprizov, I think, was the year before. I think Kirill Kaprizov. Let me take a look. I believe he was 2014, and that's one of the only that was 15. Wow. Huh. Kaprizov, what was that? 4th round? Let me see. I'm trying to find it. It might have been 5th round. Wow, it was 5th round. That's crazy. Wow, I didn't even know that. Ethan Bear also went in the 5th round too. Again, it was just a deep draft, man, and a lot of guys just worked out too. But again, as for the 3-on-3 tonight, there might be some of the streams. I don't know if they'll do it. But I do want to get into a couple callers. because I did get a good amount. Again, if you are listening now, you can still call in, and I will play it now. So again, some of these are from last week's episode, so there is one in here that is a little more recent to last week's episode. But again, let's start off with a couple calls here.
Hello there. Yeah. Thanks for your podcast. I appreciate it. But I'm wanting to ask, I think I actually agree with what RW Swope is saying. I want to see the Flyers actually be a team that's always trying to get possession of the puck in all three zones. And when they lose possession in the offensive zone, they'll go right back after and attack teams and pressure teams and forecheck them, trying to regain possession of the puck. And I think they need to get as many great skaters and speedsters, no matter what their size is, as possible, so they can do this style of hockey. This is what true Philadelphia Flyers hockey is all about. Unlike the Broad Street Bully days, I think they can get back to being a Philadelphia Flyers of today and make their team build it and construct it where they can get after teams, always creating turnovers and frustrating to play against and be a nemesis defensively, like he said. And I just want to see them become a team that's very constructed and will always look to regain possession of the puck and lead the league in all defensive categories, least amount of goals, least amount of shots against, shorthanded goals, penalty killing. And it would just be so much fun in Philadelphia, being a team full of energy and an up-tempo style of hockey and speedsters that will do this. And yeah, being physical too, but being very difficult to play against and taking away gap control and space. I think that's the way the Philadelphia Flyers need to get back to being, and not just make it be on the goalie, but a team defensively 5-on-5, shorthanded, not just by the defensemen, but the forwards too, and really get after teams as much as possible. Thank you for my comment.
So if you remember, I played that message last week. And the reason I'm bringing that up again, and I wanted to play it again, is because that is important, I think, to essentially what I was saying earlier about Torts. Like, they need to get better, again, defensively in front of him. And again, I like the way the guy's thinking. Like, it's more of just, getting not just in front of the goaltender, but it's also just playing better in general. And that's what they have to do. And again, I'm curious to see how the system works, how they play with the new coaching staff, with Torts, with Shaw, with Thompson. So I'm curious to see how they do. So let's get in the next caller. I believe this is. Again, we do have a good amount of callers here, but yeah, let's get in the next one. Oops.
This is a fun off season, eh, Chris? Got a lot to look forward to with the upcoming season. No, look, I don't want to beat a dead horse. Pretty much, we're all in consensus here. This team is just a rudderless ship right now. It has no direction. I mean, are we going with a full-on youth movement, or are we going to bring in some veterans and try to compete? Are we trying to modernize our team with today's game, or do we go out and get a Delorier to goon it up a la the Broad Street Bullies? I mean, you just don't know. The contract to Delorier is ridiculous. There's no place in the NHL today for a guy that's strictly a goon, that has no other skill level. And, as long as Fletcher is here, things aren't going to get better. I mean, Ed Snyder somewhere is rolling in his grave. His once proud franchise, his once beloved franchise, is now a laughing stock and a total joke.
Well, that Sean, if you're still in here, I know I did bring up your comment from earlier about asking me if I would get a Delorier jersey. Probably not. But dude, it's unfortunate because they have essentially become a pretty big joke in the NHL. It's really unfortunate. And the Delorier thing, again, I don't think I understand needing toughness, but you don't sign a guy like that to a 4-year deal. That's not how you do it. It's unfortunate, but again, I have such a hard time genuinely thinking that this team will be not better, because I think they'll be better. I mean, it's pretty hard to be worse than what they were last year, but how better is the question that I'm really going to ask.
Hey, Chris, it's Mike calling from North Central PA. Feeling your pain, man. Caught your video after the presser on Wednesday, and totally relate. Found it interesting that when Jim Jackson and Jordan Hall were talking on one of their videos here, that they expressed some similar sentiments. JJ plays it pretty close to the vest, and it was validating to hear a guy like Jim Jackson express some of his views on the Flyers' tremendous whiff. Reason I'm calling, though, not sure if you caught any of the Johnny Gaudreau press introduction at Columbus, but man, that was one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever seen. Interestingly, after that, I read an article by Eric Francis from Sportsnet. And in it, he says, as sought after as Johnny was as the league's second leading scorer, it sure seemed like when the music stopped on free agent day, there was Gaudreau scrambling to find a chair, no matter how unfamiliar the seat was. So just kind of curious if you did catch that, what your sentiment was, because boy, as I'm thinking about it, it sure feels like the Flyers let down another guy in Johnny Gaudreau, not just the fan base. Thanks, Chris.
Agreed. 100% agreed. And it's unfortunate. And it wasn't the fact that you missed out on a guy and you had it wasn't like it was a couple years ago when they were like kind of in on like Petrangelo, and they were in on getting like a TJ Brody, like trying to fill the hole for Niskanen, and they missed out. Like, this guy wanted to be a Flyer. Like, he wanted to come here, and you couldn't move out the money, and you couldn't do any of that. I actually didn't know what Mike had said. I didn't know any of that from the article, and same thing from the press conference from Gaudreau. But one thing I will say is Jake Voracek, who, you know, he put out a couple tweets. I think that guy's pretty pumped to play with Johnny, and I think that team, and again that city, because Columbus is a team, right? They in the last handful of years, okay, they had Panarin, it didn't work out. They traded Jones. They're in this like really weird thing. Like they had some success against Tampa Bay, and it was the dark horse of where, but I can understand why he signed there. I didn't understand New Jersey. I honestly didn't, and it's not the fact that he's could have came to the Flyers, but maybe it is. But as for the Islanders, again, they didn't sign anybody. I didn't think that was going to happen with Lou Lamoriello. But yeah, it's unfortunate because it seems like a really big swing and a miss, because you had, essentially the whole fan base was ready for this. They were essentially duped, right, for trying to get Johnny, and unfortunately it didn't happen. But let's get on the next caller.
Hi, Chris. This is Judy and Bill again, calling from New Jersey. Two things. Number one, is it all Chuck Fletcher's decisions, or is he being led by the ownership? Because it's hard to believe it's that bad. And number two, how are they going to sell tickets for the new season without a big name? We're all disappointed. Thanks a lot, Chris. Bye.
Thank you, Judy and Bill, again for calling in. As for tickets, I guess it's Torts. It's Torts. It's Carter Hart. It seems like it's going to be Tortorella. That seems like your selling point. It's so unfortunate. Because again, you had this type of again name that wanted to come here, wanted to be a Flyer, and I tweeted this out the other night. It feels like I just got dumped. You know what I mean? Like that's what it feels like. It feels like I just got broken up with, because we had an idea that this guy was going to come here. We had our free agent. We had our name. We had our guy that was going to be the selling point for going in the next season. And what essentially, what was going to be one of the main reasons to watch the Flyers was to see Gaudreau play and to see, these guys all play as a team and how are they going to play under Torts. And then you add Gaudreau into that. It's like, okay, we got a mix of a superstar. We got a good coach that maybe can bring around. And now instead of the Flyers playing, the Penguins and the Rangers 3 times and every other Metro team 4 times with Johnny Gaudreau, we now get to face Columbus 4 times a year with Johnny Gaudreau. So that's the real kick in the shins, I should say to that. But as for Devils, man, on the bright side, we all get to root against Columbus from now on. Yeah, that is very true. Calling it now for when they need to blow it up. Farabee will end up at Boston. Key will end up in LA. Sanheim will end up at Winnipeg. Hart will end up in Edmonton. I mean, they just got Jack Campbell, so that doesn't really make much sense. And I don't know. I mean, maybe. I don't know if they'll blow it up by doing that, though. I don't think blowing up is. I think it's different. Like. If you're to compare this into another team that's doing it, like Chicago, the entire Seth Jones trade is essentially making them rebuild. Like, they trade Doc, they get rid of Strome, they get rid of all these other guys, like the Brinket, Kubalik doesn't stay. They essentially have to rebuild because they have really nothing else to do because they have that Seth Jones contract. But yeah, I mean, it's very unfortunate, Jeffrey. This is so damn sad that our beloved Flyers have become a joke. It's very unfortunate because they have not essentially met up to anybody's standards with anything. But let's take one more caller here.
Hey, Chris, your boy Bleeding Orange and Black. Thoughts on the draft so far after we get in Cutter, and then spin on a different question for you. Sounds like the team's going to possibly make a trade today. What would you value trading Konechny and a few other players for? Obviously, JVR, we're looking just to shed salary cap, but if anybody else were to get traded, what would you assess them trade value at? I mean, like Oscar Lindbaum, is he worth a second pick? Is he worth a third pick? Just a player for player? What do you think, bud? Thanks for taking the question. Bye.
All right, yeah. So that was from Josh. Again, that call was for last week's show. I wasn't able to get to it. So as for Lindblom obviously not being here, but trade, you still can make a trade and you still can try to do something. Do the Flyers do it? I'm not sure. Again, if you're looking at just the team in general, okay, on cap friendly, 701,000 in cap space, really don't have much. Again, the opening roster, like they talked about in the beginning, I don't know if they make a move. If they do it, it's a hockey trade. If it's a 1-1 swap, it's something that is good for them to do and easily tradable player. Well, I shouldn't say easily, but a player that you can move right at a good rate to get something good back. And I don't know if they'll do that because essentially you need, you need an offense that can provide a spark in a given time. Carter H, did you see Bill Meltzer retweet from Eklund? No, I did not. Let me check Twitter now because that's Bill Meltzer retweet from Eklund. The Bill did retweet it. Are you talking about the Flyers make a play for Chikrin? Is that it? Huh. Well, we'll see. I mean, that doesn't make much sense to me, but we'll see what happens unless they move out another player. But I'm not sure that they do that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if they'll do that. We'll see. But again, we're getting closer towards the end of this episode. I will be at development camp tonight. This is actually the most we've had on here so far for the show. We have 34 people in here at the moment. That is the highest we've had so far. Max has been around 25. So really do appreciate that. Thank you for all the support recently with everything. Unfortunately, it's not been the best with the team, but I really do appreciate it with the support on the last video, the show today, all of that stuff. Because again, I love doing this stuff. I love talking Flyers, and again, it's a passion of mine. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you. And we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. There's a lot of different things to talk about and to break down. But yeah, unfortunately, the Flyers aren't necessarily heading in the right direction. But it's hopefully we're looking for better times ahead. Again, thank you all for calling in, for tuning in, listening here, chatting with me on the your Friday afternoon. Again, if you're going to Dev Camp tonight, 4 to 6 is the 3-on-3 tournament, and I will be doing a video and I will be tweeting live from that as well. So again, thank you all for the support, and I'll talk to you all again soon.